Most of these sessions are going to have, be fireside chats, and we'll feature multiple people at once. So we do recommend you use the grid view. Similarly, towards the bottom, if you hover over the screen, you'll see the 3 dots, more options menu. So in there's 2 things. First of all, you can open up the Q&A, which we recommend, and we allocate question and answer time to every session, and we try to get through them as much as possible. We welcome all of your great questions, so please open up that little widget, send through all of your questions for today's fantastic speakers, and we will try to get to them. Also in that menu, we do have the options for dial-in or audio only. Again, we recommend video, but we understand that in certain select cases that may not be possible, so that you do have an audio only option. Similarly, if you, just to continue the housekeeping notes, if you have any friends, colleagues, coworkers, team members, anybody else in the business who you think might benefit from today's content, you can send them the link that you used to register and log in today. You could send them to our website if that's easier, but you can still register and access to today's program. It's all streaming live on YouTube as well, and everything will be available in our brand shiny new on-demand section on our site. So feel free to check that out for archives of past sessions. And again, all the individual fireside chats will be spliced out and posted there in the coming days after the conclusion of today's program. So if you can't make it all, or if you have a colleague who wanted to attend but couldn't make it, it will be available on demand. If you're going to be posting and contributing and joining conversation on social, then we welcome you to use the hashtag BI Livecast on Twitter, LinkedIn, and everywhere else that hashtags are an accepted form. So again, BI Livecast. I think that just about wraps up my housekeeping remarks. Again, thank you to Cisco WebEx for powering today's virtual experience and being our partner. I am not emceeing today. We have Chris, our fabulous partner from Influential, who's going to be joining as our guest MC, and will be hosting the entire program and all of the fantastic content that we have coming up. So Chris, welcome. I see you're here. We'll just wait a second for Chris to join.
The good old mute button and camera button. There we go.
I know, right? There you go. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much. I thought I was going to have this power intro, and instead I'm pressing the mute button.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, we're happy you're here. So I'll turn the virtual stage over to you to kind of tee up the day and bring on our first speakers.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, David. Thank you, Brand Innovators team. You guys have been amazing through this process. This is actually our second full day effort with Brand Innovators. We love this so much that we are going to make this a monthly thing throughout the rest of the year. So we'll be coming soon with more dates. So please keep an eye out on LinkedIn, primarily is where we announce these, but look to probably late August for our next session. Again, I'm Chris Dietert. I'm the Chief Communications Officer at Influential. Influential is a social data and conversion company. That is our our boilerplate language. I like to usually just say that we are the world's biggest and best influencer marketing company. So we have a great session to start today. We're going to welcome our first speakers of the day. We're joined by Artis Stevens, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of 4-H Club. Artis brings more than 20 years of strategic marketing experience. Artis serves as a Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer, leading national 4-H marketing and communications efforts, driving the organization's positioning, brand strategy, marketing campaigns, communications, digital presence, consumer insights, and field marketing efforts. This session will be moderated by Jordan Romano. Jordan serves as the Director of West Coast Sales at Influential. Before joining Influential, Jordan was the Director of Brand Integration at MGM Studios, where he managed various partnerships on Emmy Award-winning shows such as The Voice and Shark Tank. Welcome to the stage, Artis and Jordan.
Hey, thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Love it. Artis, welcome.
Hey, welcome to you as well. Thank you for inviting me to join and share some experience.
Absolutely. Well, we're thrilled to have you guys on today. Without further ado, I'm going to make my way stage left, and you guys can go ahead and get it started. Have fun.
Great. Thanks so much. Artis, how you doing today? Good to see you.
Thanks, George. It's a pleasure to be here. Really excited to join. I was just listening to Chris read my bio, and I was like, wow, that's a mouthful. I'll have to work on that.
Very impressive bio, for sure. So yeah, we'll get started here with our first question. So yeah, we just wanted to know, what has been your biggest change since March, and how have you shifted gears as it relates to your marketing efforts? And this can be social, digital, influencers, etc.
Yeah, well, thank you again, Jordan, for the invite and the question. Before I jump into this, I do have to say one thing though, is that when you guys made me cool for a really short time span, because my 12 and 10-year-old daughters saw that I was doing this, and they got really excited. And then they asked me, could I share their TikTok videos while I was doing this? When I told them no, I suddenly became uncool again. So I just want to give you guys props for giving me just a little moment under the sun and being cool to my kids. But, just to your question, obviously the world, communities, families have faced major disruptions since the onset, COVID-19, and 4-H has been no different, right? We serve 6 million young people all across the country. We provide mentorship, skill building, social and emotional development that kids need. And in many communities, we're fabric of life, and in some, we're the only youth-serving organization outside of the school or religious institutions. So let me draw the connection to how that then affects our marketing efforts. Our programs are unique, that they're not building-centered. Our staff and volunteers partner with young people and go where young people go. 25% of our programs are delivered through schools. Another large percentage of it happens in after school. We're one of the leading providers in summer camps and summer programs for young people, which is also a major revenue driver for us. I set all that up for you and for your viewers because you can imagine, you don't really have to imagine because you've all been experiencing it in different ways, what that meant when everything came to an abrupt halt in March, right? So what we had to do was to step back, like every organization, company, families, communities were doing, to say, what does this mean for us? How do we proceed forward? And how do we think about pivoting in a way that our marketing, our branding, and our positioning is going to help us to continue to stay relevant in a time where there was so much flux and uncertainty and still is. So we really started with 3 questions. One from a marketing perspective was, how do we help our local 4-H continue to extend in a new virtual environment, and particularly as we think about extending their services so that program delivery that can continue to impact young people. And for us, that meant we needed to listen, we needed to learn, we needed to adapt, and that was going through a process of listening sessions with our stakeholders. We are delivered by land-grant universities, so public universities all across the country, so a lot of educators, and who do a great job of implementing and putting in programs, but they don't have background in marketing. So it made our job just that much more challenging to ensure that we were helping them to continue to position and tell their story. But it first meant that we had to listen so that we understood where their struggles were, where the opportunities, and very importantly, where the best practices were that we were able to then think about how we scale those things. So we went through a process of then thinking to say, well, how do we aggregate what we're doing well? We know there are struggles, we know there are some maybe spots or gaps, but how do we focus on what we're doing well in this time? So we started to shift the conversation to how do we build together to be this unified system that can respond and react, at least in a unified story, and as much as we can, a unified delivery, understanding that face-to-face programming wasn't happening any longer. So we began to really think about a format to do that, and we created this online resource called 4-H at Home. And it was our opportunity to then take what we were doing in real time and face-to-face with young people, communities, families all across the country, in the programs that we do well. We're leadership development, we're character development, but we extend our programs through STEM, healthy living, civic engagement, agriculture and food. And having that type of curriculum, having that type of content and program that wasn't building centered, but that could go anywhere, it gave us an opportunity to then reimagine to how our delivery system could then extend beyond the walls and go into homes and have interactivity where people could go online and experience 4-H in really creative ways, whether that was through video, activity guides, real-time surveys, online destinations, and learning destinations. And then we were able to position our experts. So I mentioned to you before that we are driven by land-grant universities or public universities. The other thing that it really helped us to think about was that we have a ton of expertise of all of these educators, and we call them education first responders. All of these educators that were in communities on the ground, well, we needed to create a platform that could position them. So being able to create this online platform allowed them to have a stage to work directly, not just with the communities that they serve, but also across the country. So we're now able to share best practices from Georgia to California. We're able to then take that content and package it in ways to distribute it more effectively across our entire marketplace. And then that leads me sort of to the second point, that we were able to sort of move and think about what's the connecting point from mission to market, right? So what do our consumers need? And we've always been an organization that believes in research, that believes in insights. And we didn't have a lot of time, so partly what we had to do was to take the insights, the research that we did have, and then be able to apply that to how do we ensure that we're meeting what the community needs, what our marketplace needs. So it's not just a question of service delivery, but it was a question of also of fundraising and providing the revenue. Like many companies, many organizations think about their sales and marketing efforts. We had to think about it in the same way for our fundraising and marketing efforts. Thankfully, we had a really incredible team. We still have a really talented, incredible team that thought with a lot of agility to think about how do we address some of those gaps. And creating this 4-H at Home project allowed us to increase our web visits by 4 times. We had more than 3 times of unique visitors who went to our site. But very importantly, we saw our downloads increase by 3 times as well, because we had content that people needed at the time, and then the connection that they had with 4-H also helped them to amplify it to other people who were looking for those types of resources. And then the last couple of things that I'll add is just that as we think about the focus on driving towards elevating that work and really thinking about positioning 4-H and youth development in a time where most of the attention, particularly when COVID initially hit, was around health and hunger. So for us, it was, that's where people's minds are, and that's where the marketplace were. And we're not a health and hunger organization, and it's not seen as an essential need. So for us, it meant thinking about how do we frame our organization in a way as the essential need that it is, right? Because we know that youth development and what's been happening with young people not having the engagement in school is just as essential as some of the basic needs they have, just in a very different way. So it wasn't that we didn't think about innovative ways that we could support and partner with organizations around health and hunger and some of the more safety type of things that were happening initially with COVID, but it was also about what is the next phase? What are the next things that we need to be looking ahead? And this is where I encourage a lot of marketers, a lot of positioning, is seeing the moment, but also seeing the moments ahead. And that's really where we've spent a lot of time having a parallel conversation about what were the moments ahead that we needed to think about. And one of the big moments ahead for us was simultaneously thinking about what was going to take place after this initial wave, the first wave of COVID. What was going to take place about supporting schools and having enrichment activities and community development that young people needed in services. So we created this fund called the Forward Fund that was really focused on how we engage young people and communities to move forward, and provided essential resources, educational resources, enrichment resources, social emotional development, and the support from mentors to be able to work on the ground as effectively as they could to be able to support communities and support young people. We're now totaling $1 million raised in that fund, 60 projects that we're driving deep into community, and we're continuing to build in that strategy to ensure that we continue the work that we're doing. So a lot of pivoting, a lot of changing, a lot of modifying to help to get us there.
That's a great answer. Yeah, thank you so much. So in addition to that, what are some strategic partnerships or collaborations, organizations that have included you in their marketing campaign to show, how they've given back recently in response to COVID or social injustice this year?
Yeah, it is one of the most empowering things around what's been happening in our society. And again, it started with COVID, but it also extends to social injustices and what's happening across society and across country and across the world for that matter. It's been the responsibility and the opportunity for corporate partners in corporate America. I've written about this. I've worked in my career in building some really incredible purpose relationships and purpose partnerships over a 20-year with corporate relationships. And I know the power that the corporate sector can have in making impact and driving impact. And we've been fortunate to have those types of relationships with us. And I'll give you an example of a couple. One has been the incredible work that we've been doing with Microsoft. Microsoft is an incredible partner for us. They came to the table with us a couple years ago, really focusing on digital access and digital engagement, and really thinking about how we could deepen education of technology in rural communities, and supporting rural communities and digital skills. But the real trick of the relationship was not just having a program that we were just talking to young people, but it was really about young people being empowered to teach their communities how to use technology. So the way 4-H was founded was that adults didn't want to use the latest agricultural skills and education and technology at the time, but young people raised their hand and said that they did, that they wanted to. And then that's really how the boom of the agriculture technology really took off, because young people led the charge in that. You fast forward 100 years, we believe in that same model, that the power and the voice of young people have the opportunity to really change seismic things in our society and come up with solutions. The Microsoft Tech Changemakers program has been a perfect example of that, because it's also helped young people to think about how do we address things that's happening in COVID. And that was one of the immediate things. You saw young people using 3D printers to create masks. Young people thinking about technology ways to keep connected, to map things in their community, to help and support seniors in their community as well, who were going through issues. We've been able to elevate the awareness of the initiatives and engagement around 4-H at home that I mentioned earlier, through our relationships with Microsoft leadership and our leadership. We had an interview with Trevor Noah, for example, that talked about digital literacy skills, and the importance of it and the power of it to make a difference. We've also saw that this is the ability to help to raise awareness, but also to raise funds and raise support. So another big area that we focused on has been around how do we break through in a media environment that is extremely cluttered right now. And for organizations and nonprofits particularly, it's hard to get your voice out there. So a relationship that we've been able to build over the last year has been Meredith, one with Meredith Publishing. And Meredith has really come on board with the suite of their brands to talk about issues that are important to young people and important to their readers. Mental health has been a critical element of that. And we know from surveys that we've done throughout this year that 7 out of 10 young people feel incredibly stressed and traumatized about what they're experiencing and what they're seeing in the country. What we're doing with Meredith is trying to bring and elevate that issue even more as we think about the programs, as we think about solutions, as we think about strategies to not only engage young people in part of the solution, but to make adults partners with young people so that they're listening, that they're opening access to opportunity. And then the third partnership I'll share with you is a little different than corporate, but it's also just that relevant and just that important, is influencer partnerships. And one of the key influencer partnerships that we've had is with Carla Hall, famous celebrity chef who has done some incredible work. Carla just happens to be a 4-H alum from Tennessee, so shout out to our 4-H alums who may be watching as well. But Carla has been in a relationship with us for a long time, but particularly activated over the last year and a half in terms of food, nutrition, cooking, activities and engagements that families can do together. We're all struggling, right, being at home. And it's challenging being isolated. And what we wanted to do was a couple of things. One, something that could help to elevate the idea of nutrition and food and the importance of it and eating healthy during this time frame, but also things you could do with your family and that you could connect. Carl has really been an advocate of that, and particularly an advocate when it comes culturally as well, to thinking about the gaps when it relates to food disparities in communities, particularly communities of color. So Carl is working with us more to focus in on areas and communities that we're working with. We also have the privilege of partnering with, as part of our 4-H system, a number of historically Black colleges and universities. So that's been part of our partnership range as well in working with Carla. But it's because of those types of relationships that allow us the opportunity to elevate our platform and tell an effective story. So, I'll sum this up is it's the ability to think innovatively, right? To say that you may not have a lot of resources, you may not have a lot of budget, but what do you have as your assets that maybe you can rethink your assets, reposition your assets. We don't have $50 million budget. I wish I had that. I wish I had a tenth of it or 1% of it. But we do have an incredibly talented team, an incredibly talented partner. And when we create those innovations together, we can come up with things that can change the world. And we know that's possible.
Yeah, I love that. And you touched on this briefly. I know you guys are preparing to launch a new campaign called Opportunity for All to create an America where all young people have an opportunity to succeed. So I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit more about that and then how a brand can specifically get involved in that campaign.
Yeah, no, thanks for that question. So, what Opportunity for All is about, the name is pretty straightforward, and we're really excited about this approach and the effort. And part of the reason why we're excited about it, and I'll share with you just very briefly a story. I grew up in the South. I grew up in a family that didn't have a lot of means, a very large family. So I'm the youngest of 8. And a lot of kids, Jordan.
Yeah. Definitely.
We all got along, right? We all figured it out.
Most of the time, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But what was interesting about growing up was that we didn't have a lot of richness in terms of financial, but we had a lot of richness in terms of resources and relationships, because we had the network around us. We were able to get opportunities because my mom and my dad believed in it. I had what you call an auntie network, where people in your community, they saw you doing something wrong, they were quick to grab you and say, hey, you need to go in this direction, right? And then we had access to certain things in terms of, my mom and my dad made sure that we were, even sometimes we moved to get into a better school. It's those types of things that I had access to, even though I didn't have a lot of means. But I'm sharing an example for you because I had, and I won't mention his name, but I had a friend who I grew up with who, he grew up in another community. He didn't have those things. He didn't have that kind of support. He didn't have those types of resources. But I will tell you, he had the exact same ability, or even more than I had. Smarter, talented, incredibly gifted. But he went in a very different direction than I went. And it wasn't due to his ability. It wasn't about his smarts. It wasn't about his ability to achieve. It was a lot about his environment and the resources that he had available and accessible to him, right? That's what we're talking about with the opportunity gap, that when you really look in a large perspective across our country, there are millions of young people who are facing a gap and a challenge, not because of who they are, not because of their talent and their gifts, but more so because of the lack of resources, the lack of opportunity, the lack of connections that they have to build and develop and grow into the people that we know that they can become because of their potential. And a lot of it has to do with race, a lot of it has to do with income, and a lot of it has to do with where you grow up and where you live, that too often determine a young person's trajectory. We have to change that, and we have to eliminate that opportunity gap. And that's what 4-H is about. We know we can't do it alone. We know that it takes partners to do it, and we know that it takes a lot of people coming together to say, this thing has to stop, and we can be committed to stopping it and driving it. So we're doing a few things that call people to action here to start over the next few months. We've been doing and working on issues of inequities for years. So this is not new for us. What is the commitment of trying to frame it and brand it in this way and communicate it in this way with a number of folks who we're bringing around as experts, thought leaders. So we are releasing a white paper that's going to go deeper into this issue called Beyond the Gap. I'm excited for that to release on August 5th coming up. We're also hosting an opportunity for all forum. And that forum is going to be a deep dive into the discussions and the engagement of this issue. And what I love about everything that I'm telling you is none of it's about 4-H. None of it's about adults. Every single thing that I'm talking about, young people are leading the way. It's youth voice, it's youth action. So you're going to see young people who are driving the discussion in this forum. You're going to see adults partnering. We're going to bring experts. You're going to see celebrities engaged in it. But it's going to be about adults really engaging and partnering in this effort. And then we're launching a campaign that, of course, is going to have some of your traditional campaign elements, PSAs, advertising, digital, social. But more than that, it's going to be about the substantive work that we can all do together, programs, content, volunteering, engagement, investing and donating and giving to support the mission of youth development organizations and the impact of positive youth development and positive experiences. And we're asking people to go to 4H.org, right now and sign up and join us. As a matter of fact, as you go to 4H.org, we're going to ask you to sign up to register for this event that we have coming up as well, called the Opportunity for All Forum. So we're excited about where that's going to go, and we're excited about having partners to join with us. And if you're a partner that's looking and interested to join, you can certainly reach out to me and shoot me a note. If you're interested in learning more about how you can address the gap and the disparities and inequities, or if you want to learn more and dive a little deeper, go to our website at 4H.org. And you can learn more about how you can address it and how you can work with an organization that's looking to do the same.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. And then, as we make our way out of the pandemic and transition into the new normal, what content considerations is 4-H making to creative and messaging implicitly impacted by distancing and social issues?
Yeah, so I do want to talk a little bit around the social issues, right? Because that's very near to my heart. I shared a little bit about how we were thinking about content and creation, and particularly with 4-H at home, other ways that we're delivering content. We also have what we're calling unboxed opportunities, which is a way for us to take curriculum and content and provide that directly to the doorsteps of young people and communities. And this is particularly important for communities that don't have rural broadband, excuse me. There are 12 million young people that are lacking that kind of access all across the country, particularly in our rural areas. And, there's more that we can do about that. So we're thinking about how we create content and also how we create content for families in subscription kind of models where a family can buy a STEM kit or a camping kit for them, or a health nutrition kit, but they can also donate one as well. So we want to look at those types of innovative models to be able to provide for the families who can, but also support the families who can't. The other thing that I just want to mention is the reflection of diversity, equity, and inclusion across our country. It's very important to me. I've faced it personally. I've seen it in my family where we come up against issues of social injustice, and I've written about it. I've written about even the idea of growing up as a young Black boy and having a conversation with my father at the age of 9 called the talk, right? And you commonly find that in the Black community, particularly for young boys and girls, where they're growing up and they're told, hey, here's how you need to go out of the house and essentially survive. And these conversations are important, and they're not just for the Black community, they're for people of color of all races. And it's not just for the Black community to solve, but it's for all of us to solve, because this issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion is something important for every single person. And that's what I'm so excited about, because when we see the conversation that's happening out of our country, two things I can say about it: there's a rainbow of people from all backgrounds, from all experiences, that are getting out there to help to address and to solve the issues that we've been dealing with for centuries in our country, and are really coming to head. But the other thing that I'll say that sort of brings us full circle is that I'm most proud that who's leading this conversation, who's leading what you see on TV, who's leading the engagement of discussion is young people. And that's what 4-H believes in. That's what we've always believed in, that the way we're going to solve the biggest issues that involve us is going to be from young people. And we've been just fortunate to have young people all across 4-H who step up and who step out. We have a group of young leaders who are part of our board. We have young leaders who are leading programs in every state across this country, every community across this country. And the mobilization of young people and giving them a platform, that is the way, and that's the solution that we see in being able to solve some of these challenges. That's where the conversation starts, and then that's where the action will ultimately be able to deliver on ensuring that we are bringing ourselves together around solving these issues as a country. And our goal is going to be to create a platform, and that's really what Opportunity for All is about, is create a platform not just for all young people in terms of helping them, but providing a platform for all of young people to be empowered to solve the things that they see in their communities, to solve the inequities that we see across our society. And we know when we do that in a program that's focused as 4-H and other youth development and other initiatives that are out there, we have the ability to do it.
That's a great answer. We actually have some questions coming in from the audience now, so I can read a few of those. Isabel wants to know, how has your leadership style changed over the past few months? And have you been able to develop more personal relationships with your colleagues?
Yeah, well, Isabel, thanks for that question. I would say that my leadership style has I think it stayed. I'll probably address it in two ways. I would say that when you go through, I've had to work with crisis communication a lot in my career. And one of the things that I would say about leadership during crisis and during trauma and during challenge is the importance for it to stay consistent, right? So I'll probably answer it in a different way. My leadership style has stayed consistent. My leadership style has been about the relationship and the people. My perspective is always about people first. And I understand that marketing is not an advertising. Marketing is not a press release. Marketing is not a piece of communication. Marketing is relationships, right? So I live my life by the idea of relationships and building relationships, not for how it benefits me, but how it creates value for the people that I work with. And ultimately, when you look and your perspective is that way, it allows you to apply that in the way that you lead and the way that you manage. So a lot of what I've done is really work with my team on how we're thinking about not just the next execution or the next work, but how do we think about their families and their balance? How do we think about creative ways that we give them mental health moments so that when they're empowered, when they feel fully seen, their best work comes forward? How do we ensure that their voice is being heard at every level of the organization? So from our board to our executive leadership team to every single aspect of our organization, that everyone should have access and there shouldn't be any cutoffs to how we think about that. I'll also say though, as some of the changes I will sort of reflect is that, I've had to think about just the level of patience in being able to try to drive things from afar, right? It's easy sometimes when you're in the office and you can walk over to someone and have that conversation, but you have to have a level of patience and a level of mindfulness in working with people, because there are a lot of moms and dads who are working at home and they're holding their kids in one hand and they're holding their phone in another, right?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
You have to keep those things in mind, because that's the perspective of how we ensure that there's balance for people and that we're allowing them to feel empowered throughout their life so they can be empowered at the workplace as well.
And then also this next question comes from Chris. What motivated you to want to join the 4-H team?
Yeah, well, I will tell you, my CEO, her name is Jennifer Sarangelo, is an incredible salesperson and fundraiser, but she's just an incredible visionary leader, most importantly. And I worked in youth development. I've been working in youth development for most of my career. And when I had a chance to see the vision that Jennifer and the team had for this organization and growing this organization, and the what I would call the treasure chest of this organization that many people didn't know about. Jordan, I'm sure when you probably first heard about 4-H, I don't know if you had experience when you were a kid, but when you first heard about 4-H, most people think about agriculture. They think about farms. Right. They think about the county fair. And by the way, all that's true. It is that, but it's so much more. And Jennifer has seen that, and she saw that, and that was the part of really bringing me on board to say, here's this visionary leader who wants to really take this organization to what it can be and the potential that it has to empower young people, 6 million of them now, hopefully 10 million here soon, to really change this country and change it in a positive way. But I'll say one last thing to that. That's what got me in, but it's not what's kept me here. I've been here for over 6 years. And what's kept me here are the people, the relationships that I've built, the relationships that I've built with my team, the way that they manage up and coach me, and I learn from them, the relationships that I've built across the organization with my executive team, and the positive connections that we have as people, not just as professionals, but as people. The relationship that if many of you work in sales and marketing, you know sometimes there can be this disconnect between sales and marketing. And that's the same way for nonprofits. There can be a disconnect between fundraising and marketing. Well, I've been honored and really fortunate to have a partner and her name is Jill Bramble, who's our Senior Vice President of Resource Development, who's been incredible in building this type of structure where our two teams work in sync. They work in alignment. And that way, we can build a fundraising and marketing strategy and approach that works seamlessly and that drives our consumers, that drives our donors, that helps to create the greatest value for our partners, but it's all about relationship driven and all about ensuring that our team is continuously growing, developing, and have voice and can see outcomes that lead us to success.
Awesome. And then one last question. Have you changed your personal media consumption since the pandemic started?
Yes, I have, and I laugh because I have to answer that question both from a professional standpoint, but also from a dad standpoint.
Are you on TikTok yet?
Yeah. A lot of my media consumption has been TikTok. Let's see, Harry Potter. So I'm big into Harry Potter, not because I want to be, because my two kids are humongous Harry Potter fans. So they're basically teaching me about Harry Potter, and I can't even watch the first movie. I haven't watched a Harry Potter movie yet, but I can't even watch the first movie till I finish 3 more classes. So then they take me online. You have to go out and do these tests. So now I know that I'm in the Ravenclaw house, if you will. Now, so I know where my personality lines me up. So
right.
It's a lot of that, Jordan, but it's also been beneficial to read more because I'm in front of the phone. I have my phone with me. I'm in front of the laptop, and then you're just trying to stay plugged in and connected as well. And the thing I would recommend to those who are watching and those who are viewing, because I know time gets hard, but even if it's that quick blog, even if it's that quick thing that you read that just gives you motivation in the morning to get up and to feel inspired, even if it's the thing that you say, I'm going to read 4 pages of this book, and maybe it takes me a year to do it, but I'm going to read 4 pages, every day or every couple of days. Find the things that give you your space. Find the things that give you your balance, because that's how you continue to be a well-rounded leader, but most importantly, a well-rounded person. And it's certainly been helpful for me, stressful, but certainly helpful to try to balance things out.
Got it. Yeah, it looks like we have a little bit more time actually for a few more questions from the audience. They keep coming in, so I'll ask you just a few more. Someone says, I remember the 4-H commercials from the old days. Have you ever thought of bringing back the vintage ads?
Yeah. Whoever asked that question, thank you. I love that you asked that question. Interesting enough, we recently did some vintage stuff. We typically do a lot of our vintage stuff through our products. So we have vintage T-shirts. So again, if you want to check any of this stuff out, you can go to 4H.org. But we do a lot of vintage stuff through our products and our e-commerce. Interesting enough, though, the new PSA that we're about to launch in a few weeks is the first time we're ever doing an animated PSA. So we said we needed to ensure that we're thinking about, one, the world, the freshness of our brand, the relevancy of our brand. So we're going to tell a story about the opportunity gap by talking about this line. And we're going to show a visual animation of this line and how that line really starts to create and comes to fruition and creates things on the storyboard that people will be able to follow in the narrative in this new PSA.
Got it. Another question: how do you envision technology changing to support a new generation of workers who work from home?
Yeah, so I think if you look at what you've been doing personally, right? I mean, think about some of the things that you've been doing personally, and I think those are the things that we're thinking about as well. I think we're thinking about how people are using their leisure time. Of course, things like social media and following stuff, but even the increase of gamification, right? So when we think about young people, we can't be the 4-H of old or looking at 4-H in the way that maybe we had standard delivery when you have kids who are now using Minecraft and other types of gamification, not just kids either, but adults, and how we sort of tap into the things like that. We have to also look at the increase in technology, particularly when you think about things such as content development and the new ways of publishing, you know, e-readers and how you use e-readers and interactivity. We've been talking to, in our partnership with Microsoft, a lot around the idea of AI, right? And how we think about AI. AI is already big in the agricultural field and a lot of technology, but it's important because as we think about skill development for young people and their careers, what's the next wave of the things that they have to understand so that their career development and career growth and their employability stays relevant to where the world is going? So the way that we're looking at this more 360 is, what do we need to be on the trend line with when it comes to corporations, when it comes to how they're thinking about their workforce pipeline, and then think about what does that mean for young people? What does that mean for universities? What does it mean for schools? And then how does an organization like 4-H, that's an intersecting point between all of those, then providing solution aspect with the voice of young people to prepare them for the skills of both today as well as tomorrow?
Yeah, and this next question comes from Bianca. How has your interactions with influencers changed since COVID? So this is very personal to us at Influential as well. So would like to know that, if you can explain a little bit.
Oh, with your organization, with your agency?
No, with influencers in general. Just how has your interactions with influencers changed? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying Influential. I was like, I love you. I love you guys.
Love that. Love to hear that.
So yeah, with influencers, it's always a balancing act. And what I would say about that is, you've seen a lot on social media of influencers, and particularly celebrity influencers, who get it right. And we've seen a lot on social media of celebrity influencers who get it wrong, right? And anytime you align yourself with any kind of brand, whether that's a corporate brand, institutional brand, or a more personal brand, the question I would always ask, and I'm sharing this with you because this is the question that we ask all the time, and this is how it influences me, is it authentic to who we are, right? We turn down relationships because even though they may have big names, even though they may be significant, they're not who we are. They're not relevant to who we are. And it's made us have to think more about what's our filter. What are the things that we're going to say yes to and why? And what are the things we're going to say no to? And we have to have a filter that allows us to make that decision adequately so that we, one, protect our brand, but also we're doing things that when it goes out to our audiences, to our alumni, to our consumers, they see it from a perspective of feeling like it's real and true to 4-H and who we are. And then just personally, I've just been inspired by meeting a lot of the leaders that I've met. You'll see some of these folks if you tune in to our forum, about some of the leaders in the marketplace who are just thinking about these issues around young people, particularly with schools coming back and the uncertainty. There are some amazing thought leaders that are out there, folks like Karen Pittman, who, that name may not sound familiar, but if you haven't heard that name, you should look it up, but who are thinking about these types of issues and these types of areas of how do we address the issues that we're seeing facing young people all across our country. Those people are the ones, I would even say more than celebrities, who inspire me, but then the celebrities who do are folks like Jennifer Nettles, who's our national spokesperson, and many of you know from Sugarland and her own successful career. But Jennifer is having a deep conversation with young people right now around racial and social justice, right? And how her role is being an ally, particularly for communities, BIPOC, right? Black, Indigenous, people of color, and communities, and thinking about how she can be an ally and how she can encourage others to be an ally as we think about issues that are affecting communities all across the country.
Got it, got it. And this next question comes from somebody in California. They live in California. They don't hear much about 4-H here. Is 4-H focused on certain parts of the country?
What? But we got to get out. Listen, California is one of our biggest 4-H states. Whoever said that question, we got to send you some of the contacts. The state program leader, our 4-H program leader in 4-H in California. Yeah, so 4-H is everywhere, right? So let me just give you just a little bit to the question. So we serve every community, every county, every parish in America. Some, of course, much deeper than others, but we're able to do that because we have, as I mentioned earlier, these universities that are, which we call cooperative extension. I won't go into all the details of that, but we have public universities who have then staff who work on the ground. So they all work for the public university, but they serve the county. So you may not see us, but a lot of things that you probably don't know are actually 4-H driven, right? There's a lot of things that happen in your community where whether it's some of the things you know traditionally, of course, things like county fairs, those types of things where you'll see 4-H young people involved. But there are also a lot of activities and experiences when it comes on to STEM programming in your community, or when you're seeing things regarding health fairs that 4-H is connected to. But I will say that we need more. And the only way that we can grow and get to those communities and get deeper, I should say, in those communities is by people like you, people who are willing to volunteer, people who are willing to invest, and people who are willing to join us to make sure that programs like 4-H can reach more communities, deepen its penetration in more communities, and help more kids. So again, here's my shameless plug. Go to 4h.org. You can learn more about where we are, what we're doing, also in ways that you can help.
Great. And this one's from me, actually. What's been a key motivator that gets you up each morning during these unprecedented times? I just want to know, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, that's a really good question, man. Of course, the simple answer to that, I'll give you two. The simple answer to that is my kids, right? I think about them, and I think about their future. I think about their today. I enjoy the conversation. That's been one of the blessings of even being at home. Probably not for them, but they're so like, would you leave us alone? But right. For me, a lot of it is the experience with my kids and knowing that every morning I'm getting up, that it's a morning with them, and it's a morning with them, and it's a morning with my wife, and the ability to continue to engage with them. And then I'll say the other thing, which is probably much more on a bigger, broader sense, and this is going to sound really odd, so I want to make sure I frame this correctly, that something happened with me that was just incredibly, the best way I can say, it was a motivator when the protests started taking place. And it is, I felt every emotion, Jordan: sadness, anger, frustration, hurt. But then I had a conversation with my dad, and my dad grew up in the civil rights era. And, he talked to me and he said, I see a lot of similarities back then. And he said, there are challenges, of course, but he said, in every challenge, there's an opportunity. And that really changed my outlook. And why I share that with you and why I share that with everyone who may be listening or viewing here is that I'll say that, there's no way, of course, that we can relate to George Floyd's family and the many other names who have experienced what they've experienced. But what we can do is we can try our best and try our hardest to ensure that those types of things don't continue to happen, right? That's all of our opportunity. That's all of our ability, and that's all of our potential. And for me, what's incredibly motivating is when I get up in the morning and I know I have the ability to try to make that change because I have a sphere of influence in working with 4-H. Not to be political, I'm not, because that's not what we do, not to be some different advocacy, but in my own way, in positive youth development, helping young people, working with partners, working with influencers, working with stakeholders, telling a broader story that's going to enlighten more young people and more communities to say, we can make a difference too. Whether that has to do with this particular issue or whether it has to do with the environment, or changing something in terms of rights, or voting, or engaging civically in their community, or thinking about the next innovation for career development. That for me is where my inspiration comes from. And I'm excited about what the future holds, and I'm excited about the people that I'm doing this journey with, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, thank you so much for that very heartfelt and honest answer. Really appreciate that.
Artis Jordan, thank you so much, guys. This was a great session. Artis, I actually have to admit, I was the guy that asked the question about the vintage commercials. This was like a total trip down memory lane for me. So I come from Florida, so down there the culture was very strong, and really excited to see you guys are still out there fighting the good fight, doing the good things for the kids. So thank you so much for coming on today. You had a great message. We look forward to working with you a lot more in the future.
Chris, thank you so much. Appreciate it, and appreciate all the work that Influential is doing, and proud to be part of the Brand Innovators. So thank you again for the invite.
Thanks so much, Artis. Thanks again, Jordan. All right, so we're moving on. That was a heck of a first session for the day. We're going to just keep it moving from here. Next, we're going to be joined by Jake Crumbine, the head of global influence at Impossible Foods, Tony Colvin,